When you begin doing things that are good for you, that aren't necessarily what you'd like to do, that has to do with habit or other things, get out of the rat race and the grind of what everyone's trying to do by forcing them through these behaviors over and over, and begin to talk to yourself differently. One of the ways to do that right up front is to begin to say that you're demonstrating acts of love for yourself. You're demonstrating self-care, demonstrating self-love. Hey everybody, Jeff here. Before we get started, if you're getting value from the podcast, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For those of you listening on podcast apps, don't forget to rate and review. Your support really helps the show reach more people, and for that, I am truly grateful. Now let's dive in. Welcome to The Point with Jeff Spikes. Hello, and welcome to The Point. It's exciting to be here. You showing up, watching or listening to this podcast, and the desire you have in your heart, the excitement in your thoughts of moving forward, of connecting to your greatest self, of having all of your dreams fulfilled, and the ideas that are in you to be out in the world and in sustained practice or benefiting others. Those are exciting times and exciting things to move forward on. And along the way, sometimes we get stuck. And stuck is a very natural thing to have happen. There's no issue with getting stuck. You'll hear many experts talk about how go ahead and get stuck. The only problem with it is if you stay there, right? So as soon as you identify that you're stuck, get yourself out. Have a plan of action. Know what's going to happen, right? Know what to watch for that creates that stuck point. You can quickly have a plan of action to stay out of it. Episode 118, Quantum Moves, how to get unstuck fast and step into flow. So here we are again, addressing your greatest need and desire to move forward in your greatest self. The most humble thing, natural thing that you can do is to be your greatest self and encourage others to be the same. Your perception and your approach are the most unique thing about you. On top of that, the choices you make. So you take the three of those things, you take that level of free will that you have and put that along with your best self making decisions based on what's truly in your wiring to be and do. You have an entirely different result than just ending up, as we discussed last week. Just ending up somewhere and looking back and saying, well, how the hell did I get here? Right? It's, you're only stuck when your energy's trapped. You might have a mental block or think you're stuck in a certain area and you're thinking your way through it. But as long as there's still flow and movement of energy, you're okay. There's just something happening. But when you can begin to feel it and you know that energy is just, there's no momentum, there's nothing passing through, that's another story. That's really where you want to align and where you want to shift. And the answer to getting out of that is aligning your strengths, putting energy into that alignment and to that forward movement and taking action. So there's that choice and free will. So if you can align your strengths and learn to express the energy of your strengths towards a goal, towards a vision, and take action, then you're going to blow past every stuck point you find. Main points of this are from our new prompter that I'm having to look over at. I may if I figure out a way to keep it right here so you can't even tell, but I'm not sure it matters that we know that I'm looking at something to help keep things moving. Common reasons you feel stuck, right? First thing might be overthinking it. And what causes overthinking? Fear, self-centeredness, like really concerned with what can happen. And some of that self-preservation can cause some of that fear of, if you're concerned with how something's going to affect you, that can have an impact, but that misalignment can also come from old narratives and really telling yourself these stories and thinking through these stories that are affecting you negatively or that are just affecting you and your perception of how things happen. Those old stories of stuck points in the past or other problems that have come you don't want to bring forward. One of the most damaging things you can say in a company is, well, we've done that before, especially without challenging it. And well, what does that mean? We've done that before. Well, we've set our mission, vision, values before. Right. So as your company changes and you add new partners, new pieces, new segments, and it takes on a different energy, that mission, vision, values, it may be helpful to do it again so that the people involved have a different understanding of where you're going. And you may have already achieved the mission that you had in your initial mission statement, or the third time or fourth time that you created it, in which case writing down a new mission to reach for becomes important. Because in business, you're either growing or you're not. If you're not growing, you're not existing. You're either growing or shrinking. Maybe you're just operating consistently at capacity, but then there's always a way to make things better and grow, to add to the price point by adding new services. Every business in the world has ways. We get creative, and as you think about what's really working for you and you think about the true needs of your clients, can find ways to expand. So rather than allowing that to take us on a tangent, let's stick with this idea of not allowing the old narratives to get in your way. If it's true that what's come before that's allowed you to get to where you are today is not necessarily the energy, the thought process, or the actions that are going to help you get to where you want to go tomorrow, then old narratives can't do anything other than bring in history that's going to be damaging. The only thing from history that you need to bring forward are the lessons of what you learned in history, of what works so you can duplicate them, of what doesn't work. And especially if you found things that no longer work, understanding how to lay those to rest. And sometimes that can take some ceremony. Sometimes that can take a degree of gratitude, an expression of thanks to the strategy that you need to no longer use. And it helps your whole team, your whole environment move on to something different. So the quantum moves method, right? I would say just the quantum strengths method more than anything. These small shifts in strengths application that change your entire field, that just comes right back into what you feel most passionate about. And if you can exercise moving towards tiny little short-term goals, practicing new ways of being that are within the realm of your strengths, then designing I statements and behavioral action statements towards trying to do something in a way that's more effortless for you, then you're finding answers in that quantum field. Now, expanding your thought process to all of the resources available can take some brainstorming. And that's where having more than you in the room and respecting and honoring the others in the room for their approach and for their perspective and for how they're designing their strengths into action can create it can expand your resources exponentially. Just the ideation alone of all the different types of ways to get something done and giving people the freedom to access and work within their greatest self to get something done, as long as the result is there, that can be alone a way of really expanding an environment and having people feel fulfilled in what they're doing and gain that momentum and enthusiasm. But one of the greatest mistakes you can make is not considering. What is the problem ever with considering? There is none. What is the expansion with considering is all. Considering what you haven't done before that should you consider and think about and actually do could make all the difference in the world. Considering the things that you've been doing that aren't serving you anymore at all, but it feels good to do them, or there's a belief that it might be work again. Considering the possibilities of what you're holding on to that if you let go of will make all the difference in launching quicker, faster, smoother, making your life easier. This is the mental work that goes into it. But the part of the quantum move is considering that smallest part of movement and action in the greatest possibilities of all things available to you. Your customers' feedback. If you're talking to an individual, the experience they are having, you're not gaining clarity on the experience they're having and how they're benefiting or gaining from the experience with you. You're missing data points that are part of the resources available to you. Because one of the greatest resources is the feedback you might get. And you'll spend time judging feedback as haters or as bad. I mean, and clearly there's some haters that are going to say what they want to say. That doesn't mean it's not feedback. So understanding what feedback is and understanding that all things that there, how many points of feedback there is part of that quantum move. So creating rapid flow states comes from really a handful of things. One is you want to be in the best physiological condition. You want to be in the healthiest physiological logical shape you can be. Being fit, well, strong, feeling good physically, being healthy really contributes to your overall emotional state, which affects your level of feeling resourceful. And stress can oftentimes reduce that feeling of resourcefulness. Rather than judging whether or not you're just exhausted or tired or that process beat you up or it was just emotionally exhausting or whatever it is, and start removing judgment words and just start picking up different ways of looking at it from this view of, did that help me feel more resourceful or less resourceful? And what is needed to regain my sense of resourcefulness? And that usually comes along with improving your emotional state if you're not feeling resourceful. So your physiology plays a good part in that. So nutrition, body movement come in great play with that. And that's a great start. So you get to evaluate that based on where you are. And that in itself, you can use your strengths to guide towards improving that in your life. Having a baseline of really being clear and honest of where you're starting and knowing where you'd like to be. And then thinking through what's the identity of that person in that condition and in that shape. Because if I stay in this condition, it won't work. Quick story, I was working with my coach on fitness, and I had previously weighed 307 pounds. I was working with a fitness coach and a weight loss professional to help get me down, and I got down to 207, and I couldn't break it for the life of me. Now, at some point, I had just lost muscle because of all the ways that diets used to be promoted. And I had found myself weak and that was a problem for me because I like doing really active things. I was at the ranch holding down a calf, trying to, hold it so that they could be taken care of. And I had no strength in my arms anymore. I was blown away. So I started seeing another coach and I was getting stronger, but I couldn't get below 207. So I went and found another coach. At some point, and this is years of being in these huge dives and dips, but never really getting below 200. So when I finally worked with this other coach and I busted through that and I'm working down towards 180 and towards 175 and my low was 173, I had just under an 8% body fat. It might have been 6% at one point, but I was in my opinion, smaller than I wanted to be. So the next move was to start building out. Well, what got identified, talking about identity, is that I kept writing down 2, right? Instead of saying 185, I started writing 285, 285, 284, 283. And it was a mistake I kept making. And in my speech, it got noticed that I was making it. My coach said, dude, stop. Do you hear and see what you're doing? Your identity is still someone that is in the 200s in your weight. As long as your identity stays heavy, you're going to be heavy. So is your identity's one that's in the hundreds, but said automated being heavy. It's not much different than when you change from one year to the next and you're still, for the first few weeks, you still find yourself writing the wrong year because you've automated writing that year. You've automated the presence and being of who you are in that identity of who you are. So to get in rapid flow states, it's important to consider all of those data points and get into base repeatables that you can say over and over that speak to who you're becoming and the baseline of strategy. One of my favorite base repeatables is that when I go to the gym and train, I say that when I train, I get stronger. Everyone I know and love gets stronger. And I begin to imagine the strength and wellness of those that I love most, the people that are closest to me. And then I go through the list of people I work with and clients and friends. And I just imagine that as I'm doing this, it's having a ripple effect in the universe that's making an impact on others and that they're being strengthened how they need to be strengthened. And Every time I take other types of actions, I can begin to say the same type of mantra. So that I call it, it's really a base repeatable. And you can hear about that on another class. DM me if you want to dig into a practice of making these base repeatables, learning how to build them so that they really align with what your strengths are and how you show up and the best of who you are is really a joy, but it's one of the ways that you can get into this rapid flow state. But being in good physiology, which we also were able to use as far as how to get into that rapid flow state using some language and noticing all the parts of your area that don't have alignment, and then setting those goals and beginning to make action towards them. And at some point, the other little key here is when you begin doing things that are good for you, that aren't necessarily what you'd like to do, that has to do with habit or other things. Get out of the rat race and the grind of what everyone's trying to do by forcing them through these behaviors over and over, and begin to talk to yourself differently. One of the ways to do that right up front is to begin to say that you're demonstrating acts of love for yourself. You're demonstrating self-care, demonstrating self-love. It's better than saying I'm loving myself. You can say I'm doing the things of self-care, but when it's a demonstration of self-love, you don't have to love yourself in the minute. So you wake up and you don't want to go on a walk, or you don't want to try this new habit or behavior. And you have all the reasons in your mind as to not to do it. And then you say, well, do it out of self-love. And say, well, I ain't loving myself right now. I just want to stay asleep. Just stop for a minute. And you can kind of put forward with this new energy and this new thought of, wait a minute, I don't have to love myself or feel all happy, joyous, and whatever to do these things. I could just tell myself that I'm going to do it. But instead of beating yourself and telling yourself you better do it or else, and all those other things, say no. Be kind, be gentle, be loving, and just demonstrate love to yourself. Allow that inner adult to take over and say, it's okay today. We don't have to be happy right now. We don't have to enjoy that we have to get up and do this, but we're going to demonstrate this level of self-care and self-love in this moment so that we can have more of this, because we want more of this. We want more of the resourceful, good feelings. So base repeatables can come into play with that, but remember, you don't have to feel a way to demonstrate that feeling towards yourself, to express that to yourself through your actions, just like others. You can not feel very appreciative about somebody, and you can be irritated or aggravated and think, and not feeling great about how someone's communicating in a moment, and still not be nasty back to them. And that's a demonstration of kindness and tolerance. So if you can express that to others, learn to express that to yourself, and you're going to get in that flow state, that rapid flow state, much faster. So it does still take some force, and some force of choice, and some force of that self-will, that will that's used properly. Why is alignment more powerful than grinding? I wonder even if that just makes sense immediately to you. You just settle right in and go, no, alignment's a lot easier. Have you ever thought you want, like waking up in the morning and you set yourself to wake up at a certain time in the morning, but there's another part of you that's like, I do not want to get out of bed. And you start balancing back and forth between, well, will they forgive me if I don't show up? Well, they're going to hate me. And then, well, then by then now I'm worried about being late. Well, now should I show up or not show up? I mean, now what if I'm late, right? All of that chatter can start, and all of those conversations can begin happening right there in your mind. That's the grind. Why is alignment better than the grind? Because if you can get all parts of you aligned, what part of me, you can even ask yourself, well, I'm going to get up, but I'm going to get moving in this direction, but I'm going to start considering what part of me didn't want to do this. Is it just simply that I was tired and the tired part of me said, oh my God, please? Well, that might be easier for you to override and for you to do something different. But what if there's a different agenda or initiative as to why you're not wanting to get up? Just leave space for it. Ask yourself, what is it that I could learn from this that it would help me not do it again. Is there a part of me in here that just doesn't want to do this? And when is the first time I ever felt that? And how could I get rid of that? You might then have a coach or someone else in your life to help you clear some of these things to move forward. We get into this idea of alignment. Sometimes people, a lot of people choose therapy. Therapy's become very popular. What used to be unpopular and frowned upon is becoming more and more accepted, popular, and respected, which is amazing. It's wonderful that we're able to show up and say, man, this isn't working for me. I've got some feelings and stuff that I want to work through. But therapy is typically history. It's typically going back into those feelings and emotions and considering how to let go of them, how to move on, how to not allow them to attach to our identity, and how to pick better ways to move forward. And that's a wonderful energy. You step into the coaching mode, and it's 100% about how do we move forward. If we're looking at the past, we're looking for the lessons just so we can grab the lessons and move forward. And it's 100% about helping you find your best way to move forward. And if that includes therapy, supporting you and helping allow the space for you to gain therapy, get a therapist that you think is really beneficial for you, and then utilize that to continue moving forward. Therapists and coaches can work aligned quite well if they are aware of the process. And if you're in a position of autonomy where you're managing your therapist, your coach, and other things as a resource, your doctor, your physician, all of these things become your resources when you're in a position of autonomy and self-leadership and empowerment of you moving forward towards what you believe you are meant to be. And you get to be in the driver's seat of your life. That is a very important thing to maintain. It's one of the misses we have in dealing with people that are having challenges with depression after crisis or other types of things that we start categorizing as a mental wellness or mental illness issue. Because sometimes it's just having a way to move forward. And sometimes we need to go back into history and get some help and some therapy on how to close up some things so that we can move forward. But either way, that energy of moving forward is still the key and still the point. So gaining alignment with all parts of yourself, I will do the immediate crossover that it's the same in an organization. Gaining alignment in all parts of an organization is critical because you can get moving and have somebody still wanting to sabotage whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So creating the buy-in, creating the vision, very important. The CEOs that we're working with, and if you're a CEO here listening today, it's too easy to not focus on the vision and not remember that you're the one that guides that vision. And you're oftentimes the client-facing, the public-facing face, the representation of your idea, your company, and what you're doing. And if you don't keep that vision out there, and then when you're back with your team, you're also encouraging, and it's very easy to start buying into the lower level goals that are there. And it's really important you remember that you're the keeper of that vision. You get to live in the being of the identity that you're becoming and help raise everyone else up. And within your strengths, you can find a way to do that. No matter who you are, you may not be the most comfortable forward-facing person, and you found a different role and a different way of being in your role that's more within your strengths, and that's fine too, but you still get to be the keeper of the greatest vision that exists for you and your company. Momentum loves alignment. Momentum loves ease and effortlessness. That aligned action is part of creating momentum, and once you're in momentum, it loves that aligned action, and the more parts involved, it's one of the reasons businesses, companies, and teams can be so engaging and encouraging to help align towards a goal in their greatest self, because you never know what little tiny part is going to change everything. And it's opening up the possibilities to gain everybody. That alignment opens up the possibilities. So one little quantum move. We never know what that smallest piece is that's most connected to everything else. One little move can change everything. So that's the point here today with quantum strengths. We're still not completely thorough on the name, but we'll have an answer out on that by the end of this week. It's really coming clean. That it looks like, I'm just losing my train of thought. What's the name? What's right? Quantum strengths. But we had the other name that we had settled on, and it just totally escaped my mind. Well, we're going to let that go. Oh my gosh, that's going to drive me crazy. I just want to call it the momentum map because we do momentum mapping for some of our business clients, and we do brand strengths. Anyway, sometimes our minds can be working in so many directions that the one thing we want to access isn't quite there. And just settling down and breathing, kind of like losing your keys, sitting down and breathing and just asking for the answer of where they are, and everything comes clean. So there I am in all of the humanity, loving myself anyway. Embrace yourself, embrace your strengths, move forward in the most powerful way you can. Remember, being the most unique, amazing, beautiful version of yourself truly is the most humble and approachable thing that you can do. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. Please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.